And the only way they get us to work is to bring our families, bring our children, and in front of our eyes, they will ask them to put their hands on the table and they will chop those hands off. For any parent that disagrees or refuses to work for them, that is what happens to his children. Hello Nigerians, I hope this video meets you well. So, few days ago, we celebrated our 64th Independence Day. And Independence Day, as you know, is supposed to be a thing of joy for a country that is working. Because it's just like you, as a human, as a person, celebrating an additional 1 year to your year is always a thing of joy. But unfortunately, in Nigeria, the opposite is the case. But out of every bad thing, out of every terrible thing, if you look at it critically, there will always be something that will give you joy. Now, I want you to have a look at some of these guys, because these guys, to me, are the heroes. Those are the one that were singing the old national anthem. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's colony. And that on its own gives me joy, because the Nigeria that we have today, that is in dire situation, in the kind of predicament that we are in, the kind of nzobu nzobu song that you need to ginger you for war is the old national anthem. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria calls obey, to serve our father's land. I will replace that serve with to fight for your father's land. With love and strength and faith, the labor of our heroes past. I'm not talking about only these heroes behind me. I'm talking about our great-grandfathers, those people that went through hell in the hands of the British. Our great-great-grandfather, they are actually the heroes past because they went through hell. Did you know that during the colonial time, when the British came to Africa, I'm going to talk about Nigeria in particular. When they came to Nigeria, they needed things to build their own part of the world, and the resources that they needed to build that part of the world is not in their own part of the world. They need to go out to find those resources. Nigeria was one of those part of the world that they found these resources. And at that time, the British, they come in few. They come in few. They might not be more than 10, 15. But the thing about it is that when they came and they saw and they decide that they have to conquer, and you cannot take resources off the local people without actually fighting and without those people also fighting you back. But what gave the British advantage was their guns, their little pistol, because as at then, Africans are not aware that you can just have a little pistol and shoot someone and that person is gone. When they started seeing these things, it's like a miracle to them. How can this little thing shoot someone and they're gone? So that puts a lot of fear into Africans, Nigerians in particular. And that is why you will have about 20 British in Nigeria, overseeing a region of more than 5 million people. Why? Because those people are afraid of them. Not just the people, but the leaders of those people. No leader at that time, no king at that time wants to die. So the British, through the kings, are now using the people. And anyone that refuses to go by what they said, that person will be killed. And that was what was happening. And all the resources that the British need to take away in order to build Britain, they need labor, they need hands. They cannot do it themselves because they are few in numbers, and they get all these people. And at that time, there are stubborn Africans that decided, we are not going to work for these people. At that time, they will come to a town or a village and they will ask all the men to come out. And they will tell them what they needed them to do, how they want them to get all the resources out of the ground. They will tell them what they want. And any one of them that decided that they are not going to work for the British, you know what they do? They will call your wife, they will call your children, and they will ask them to put their hands on the table and they will chop their hands off while you are watching. And this is what they do in order to convince people to work for them. So people have no choice than to continue to do all this dirty work for the British through the kings. And this carried on for so long, for many, many years. And after all those years, what then happened? After the British have gotten resources that they needed to build Britain, they then need people again to do the dirty job in Britain. And at the end of the day, that is when slavery started. Pulling people from Africa to Europe or wherever in order to use them as labor. And that also carried on for many, many years until our forefathers, our great-great-grandfathers started to resist these actions. And most of them, while traveling, taking them on the ship down to Britain, some of them will not just protest, they will revolt. And at the end of the day, because you can have about 1,000 slaves to just about 5 white people, but you see that little gun in their pocket, that is what sets fear in the hearts of Africans. But at some point, some of them decided to build that courage. And that was when they started fighting back. Many of them lose their lives. But at the end of the day, those few British on the ship will be killed and will be thrown in water. And that ship will be turned around. That was the beginning of slavery freedom. So if you think it is these noble men behind me that were behind your freedom, they were part of it. But the genesis of our freedom are our great-great-grandfathers. And that is why you cannot just give up on Nigeria because it's not working. And it says, the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain, to serve with heart and might, one nation bound in freedom, peace, and unity. If you don't serve with heart and mind, you can never have that bond that will then bring that peace and unity. And that is where we need to get to in order to bring Nigeria to where it needs to be. Until we have a leader that we can truly look at his eyes and he can look at us back in the eye and say, I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria with all my strength, to defend her unity and honor and glory. So help me God. So you are even asking God to help you because you know you are going into a war. How many of these current leaders that we have can go by that pledge and stick to it? So don't let anybody deceive you with the new national anthem. The new national anthem is okay for those that have benefited from Nigeria. The white man that wrote that national anthem at that time, they benefited from Nigeria, and that is why at that time can hail Nigeria and say, Nigeria, we hail thee. And that is why they all sat down and decide within a short period of time, without due consideration, change the national anthem. Yes, they hail Nigeria because they were able to amass wealth to themselves. If you're going to hail anything, you have to have benefited from that thing. Yes, their tongues and tribes may differ, but in love and unity, they were packing our money. They were stealing our money. So yes, that national anthem works for the kind of leaders that we have today. But for you and I, the ordinary Nigerians, we have to go back to that old national anthem, because that is the one that is calling you, because it is Nigeria that is calling you that, please, I'm in trouble, I'm in the dungeon, I'm in the well. Rise, Nigerians, compatriots, Nigerians. Nigeria is calling you and is expecting you to obey. And is saying you need to serve your father's land. But where we are today, we are not serving. We need to fight for our father's land. And we must not, under any circumstances, allow the labor of our heroes past and our great-great-grandfather to go in vain.